On this episode of Artist Spotlight, I talked to Emily Tate, a Juilliard graduate who's currently in Cats on Broadway. The video for the interview cuts out partway through, but the audio is all still there, so keep having a listen. It's a really great story. Here we go. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Colby Dezelick. Welcome to our second episode of Artist Spotlight. I'm here with Emily Tate, who is currently in Cats on Broadway, and we're excited to share her journey with you guys today. Yeah. Emily, give us a quick snapshot of just like who you are, what you do, what's going on right now, and
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm Emily Tate. I grew up in Utah. I grew up dancing and singing, and went through high school, graduated. I ended up going to college at Juilliard here in New York. I studied dance there, and right now I'm in Cats, and I play Tantamile, who's one of the twins, and I cover Victoria and Syllabub. So Victoria is the white cat, and Syllabub is the little kitten that sings the beginning of Memory. That's kind of how people can recognize it.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And this is your first Broadway show.
This is my first Broadway show.
Amazing. Emily and I worked together 2 summers ago. We did Oklahoma at the Muni. Yeah. So we'll get there at some point. But let's go back to the beginning. Utah, right?
Utah, southern Utah.
So you grew up in Utah, and how in the world did you get started in dance and theater?
So I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my sisters danced. So they took ballet classes all growing up, and I followed in their footsteps.
Sure.
And my mom found this amazing studio, this kind of diamond in the rough there in southern Utah, and we trained there in ballet, jazz, tap, voice, musical theater. Did a bunch of kind of musical theater review shows kind of thing. I never did like the High School Musical or anything, but really focused on training. I did a lot of ballet summer programs.
Yeah.
And dance was kind of my thing. So I was thinking about where to go to college and, considering different options, and I decided to go into dance because that's kind of my niche. Even though I knew I always wanted to do Broadway. So I was like, okay, I want to focus on dance, but I want to be in a place that I can take voice lessons and acting classes and do theater. So, New York.
Yeah,
so I auditioned and gratefully got into Juilliard, and had kind of the best of both worlds, because I was dancing to, all day, every day, and then I was able to do some summer theater in between, so got some taste of that, and took voice lessons outside of school.
That's great.
Yeah. Am I speeding ahead too far?
No, you're great. Tell us about the process of the college audition process, which you went through.
So they do regional auditions, and I auditioned for Juilliard in LA. That was the closest place for me. And so you send in your application, you set up your audition time. The audition started with a ballet class, and then they make a cut, and then you do a modern portion, they make a cut, and then you do a solo, your own solo, and then they make a cut, and then they teach you rep, and then they make a cut. And then they do an interview. And then at that point, you're kind of in the final waiting pool, and then it took probably another month after that till I found out.
Wow. Did you audition anywhere else?
I auditioned at 2 other places.
2 other places.
And I know a lot of people audition for like 10 schools. Yeah. So I was really lucky.
Yeah, no,
and
but that's great.
maybe, I don't necessarily recommend auditioning for only 3 schools, but I felt confident.
Good, yeah.
And I auditioned for Boston Conservatory and for SUNY Purchase, and ended up at Juilliard.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's amazing. So you dance all through growing up. You auditioned at Juilliard, and now you're here. You were there for 4 years,
4 years.
right? and you got a degree in
Bachelor of Fine Arts in dance.
dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the curriculum like? And walk us through the first year that kind of I'm sure like I know I had a shock just going to college to begin with.
God.
I can't imagine.
The first year is the
Juilliard.
hardest. The first year is the hardest because you're moving away. I mean, for me, I'm such a homebody that moving away from home is a big thing. And moving to New York was another big thing. Like, I grew up in a teeny tiny town, and suddenly I'm in, one of the biggest, greatest cities in the world. So, so the first year was rough. It's like, we do, let's see, ballet every day, modern every day, partnering twice a week, and then rehearsal, 3-hour rehearsal every day. We're doing, we do 4 big shows a year, and then 4 student choreographed shows a year. So we're kind of always working on something, always rehearsing something. It's a conservatory, so we didn't have regular academics like at a university, but we had liberal arts classes like humanities and writing and dance history and anatomy and stagecraft and those kind of things that are more arts related, but I skipped on the math and science, which is great.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. So, yeah.
So that first year, and then as you kind of grew throughout the program, you said there were a lot of student-run productions. Yeah. Were you ever involved in any of those?
Totally. So they do these workshops where anybody can choreograph a piece, and you get your own dancers or performers to be a part of it, and so I did many of those. Choreography is not something that I really love at this moment. I can see myself doing it more later, but so I didn't really choreograph a whole lot during school, but a lot of people do. So I was part of. I was a guinea pig for a lot of other people.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then during the summers, like after my first summer, I started doing regional theater. So I was like, I'm sick of concert dance. I want to do a show during the summer. So then I do that, and then I come back to Juilliard and dive into concert dance. Yeah. And then I'd be
back and forth.
And part of the great thing about going to New York, this is a side note, but part of the great thing about going to school here is that I was able to audition it throughout school, even though I wasn't really wanting to work at that time necessarily, but getting that audition practice was huge for me.
That's huge.
Because it's a different muscle.
Absolutely.
For sure. It's not something that you can just do. Yeah.
What was one of the first auditions you went to in the city when you were here?
One of the first auditions was for the Phantom of the Opera tour. And I got really close. We did probably 4 or 5 callbacks. And then I started getting nervous. I was like, oh my God, what if I get this? And then do I leave school? But then, it all worked out, and it worked out in my favor of not getting it, because then I finished, which was what needed to happen. But it was such a good learning experience, auditioning and having to sing, many times for people. And at that point, I didn't really consider myself a singer. So it was good.
It was good.
And it broke it broke me open to that, and then at that point I really started taking voice lessons seriously. And
so looking back on those 4 years, I know you said that it was good that you finished. What are some of the big takeaways from school? Because I know I'm a big believer in going to school too as well, if you have the opportunity to. So what are your takeaways from that?
It's opened so many doors for me. That's like the biggest thing, is that the training was first and foremost, the training, because, there's no other time in your life where that's going to be the priority. Like now, graduated, working, it's a struggle to make time to go to class, to take a lesson. Like, it's a lot more challenging when you're working full time, and especially before you book something in the arts, like you're probably working some odd jobs, and then that's really the last thing you want to do not the last thing you want to do, but the last thing you can do.
Yeah.
Is take class. So like having those 4 years where you can really hone your skill is kind of priceless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive.
Sure.
But it's worth it.
But I think a good investment.
It's worth it. It's a good investment because now I have, those skills and not only that, but having the degree, I think just kind of gives you an edge. People see you in a different kind of tier.
There's a credibility.
There's a credibility there that says, oh, this person actually like does know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I feel confident hiring them, that they're not going to be great at auditioning and then a mess.
Sure.
Once you hire them. So that's a good thing. And I met a bunch of people, which is another huge thing. That's opened so many doors for me. Yeah. That's where I met Andy Blankenbuehler, who's given me 2 jobs now. And, I actually, for our, we have a senior showcase, and at the end of the showcase, we do a senior bow, where we bring in a choreographer to do a piece on all of us as kind of one last hurrah. And one of my friends at school, Corey, who's also in Cats with me, I went to him and I was like, Andy, so why don't we get Andy to do our bow? Because, that would be epic. And we got Andy to do our bow. And that's how I met him. And then that's led to so many things for me. So that's just one of the many examples of, making those connections. That's kind of the way this business works, is connections. You
gotta have it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So let's lead right into after that bow of stepping into the professional world. You said Andy Blankenbuehler gave you 2 jobs already. One is Cats. And the other one was Bandstand. I did the Bandstand
premiere that they did at Paper Mill Playhouse in Jersey. And
let's talk about that, because that shows, now clearly on Broadway.
It's on Broadway. It's like I wish I could be in 2 places at once.
Yeah, right.
But it was such a great learning experience for me. It was actually right after I worked with you at the Muni.
Right.
I got back to New York right after the Muni, and we started working on Bandstand. And I was a swing in Bandstand, and that was a major challenge. That was
wow, yeah,
diving into the deep end.
Certainly with an Andy Blankenbuehler show.
Yes, exactly, because Andy notoriously does, this side does this, and this side does this, and this couple does this variation, and this couple does this variation, and it's all very layered. And so unlike some choreographers who use more unison or more, easy to process choreography. It was a challenge. It was a big challenge, and it was the best thing because I gained so much respect for swings. Yeah, they're pretty epic. You have to be the best of the best to be a swing, and because your mind has to work in crazy ways, and you don't get rehearsal, and you don't get the time for yourself to really get it. And that's kind of the life of an understudy too. But I feel like being a swing is even more because, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but when I go on in my understudy roles, I'm at least comfortable on stage, and I know I can track them while I'm on stage, and you
understand the lights.
I understand
and all of that,
the flow of the show, but as a swing you don't get that opportunity. So that was a really good learning experience for me. And but I never went on, which was hard.
Oh really? Oh wow. How long was the run?
The run, we rehearsed for 6 weeks and then performed for 6 weeks. So it was pretty quick, but I never went on, which it's hard because you don't really know how well you've done your job, honestly.
Sure.
I felt prepared, but I was never tested. So, but it was a really good learning experience, and
that's amazing. Yeah. So let's get into Cats.
Yeah.
Right. So after Bandstand closed.
What
did you do?
I did right after Bandstand closed, I did a couple Nutcrackers, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
to pay rent. I did a Nutcracker in Long Island and back at home in Utah, and my boyfriend Alex and I did Sugar Plum, and we've done that
awesome.
a few years in a row. And then you get back to the city after that, and I was a nanny for like 5 months while I was auditioning because you gotta pay rent. So, but that was a really heavy audition season. I was going to a ton of auditions, January, February, March, and Cats was one of them. And I desperately wanted to get Cats. Like, it was in my bones. Like, I needed to get it.
Were you a fan of the movie as a kid? Had you ever seen it?
So my boyfriend Alex is a major fan of the movie and has seen it, 100 times.
Sure.
I had never seen it, but like I knew that I wanted to work with Andy again, and I wanted to dance, and I wanted to, be
Perfect
in a
show.
Really heavy dance show, and that's Cats.
That is
Cats. So I like had to be in it. And one of the interesting things about that audition season for me was that I was auditioning for all these different regional things and stuff, and I actually didn't book a single one of them except Cats.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy.
That really is.
And I mean, I was auditioning for so many things, like rinky-dink, 3-week gigs in wherever, middle USA.
Wow.
And didn't get it. But then,
Cats on Broadway.
Divine intervention, something,
Yeah.
But then I get Cats, which, but not that it was that easy. I had 7 auditions for Cats.
Wow. Wow.
So
walk us through what was the first audition you did for it?
So I was really lucky and didn't have to go to the open call because Andy invited me to the invited call. And at the open call there were like 1,200 girls. Just at the open call.
Crazy.
Like, wow. So then I went to the invited call, which was the following week, and there were 2 groups of 150 girls at that one.
Still a lot.
Still a lot. Still a lot. So we danced, and then the next day came back and sang. And then the next week came back and danced and sang again. And danced and sang and danced and sang. And then we were at what they were calling the final auditions, where, producers, there were probably 20 people behind the table at this final call, and it was so much fun. I've literally never had more fun at an audition.
Right. And
that was part of it that made me be like, I have to be a part of this because I'm enjoying this too much to not be a part of this, And that was pretty cool because that final audition day, it was a 2-day kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We danced the first day, and then I got an email that night saying, tomorrow you're going to come in and sing for Andrew Lloyd Webber and Trevor Nunn. And I was like,
wow. Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
That's crazy,
yeah. So I got really nervous, but then I was fine. But then it's like I got in the room. That day the next day we danced again, and then sang, and Trevor Nunn and Andrew Lloyd Webber, for those who don't know, are they actually created the show Cats together. It was just the 2 of them using T.S. Eliot's work, but they really were the 2 that
Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote all the music.
Yes.
Trevor Nunn was the original director.
And they were both really in just the 2 of them in creation of the whole show. And then of course Gillian Lynn, the original choreographer, was a part of that too. But yeah, so it was really cool to get to work with Cats history.
Yeah, right? Legends.
Like, and so then after that final audition, I had 4 more auditions.
As it goes sometimes.
As it goes.
Yeah.
So we did we did the final, and then I didn't hear anything for like a week and a half or so. And then they're like, hey, can you come in again to see if you can cover Victoria? So I was like, okay. So I go in, and we dance, and we do the Victoria solo, which is original Gillian Lynn, and that's one of the parts that hasn't changed of the show, is this, minute-long, 45-second long solo that Victoria does at the beginning of the show. So I go in, I do the solo, I think, okay, great, that was like a great final audition. And then three more auditions later, doing the Victoria solo, singing again, dancing again, singing again. I'm like, if you don't give me the job at this point, like, you need to, it's...
I've already done the show.
Yeah, auditioning for Cats is becoming a part-time job. So, anyway, but so it was a long process. The whole thing was like 6 weeks or 8 weeks,
wow.
Of auditions. And then kind of the greatest moment was... I was nannying through all of this, and there was this Monday that I was working from 9 to 7 with one nanny family, and then I had an hour dinner break, and then I was going to babysit from 8 to midnight or whatever. And I was like at the verge of a breakdown, just like, I cannot nanny one more day. And, I'm doing this crazy long hours, and I get an email from Lindsay Levine, who's the casting director of Cats. And she was like, hey, give me a call when you get a second. Heart pounding, like, what does this mean? Do I need to audition again?
Yeah.
And so I call her at that 7 o'clock dinner break that I had. And she was like, so, how are you doing? And I'm like... Don't ask me how I'm doing. I don't
Skip
care.
the small talk.
Like, I don't need to talk small talk. And then she was like, so it looks like you're going to get an offer for Cats. And I just like, and that was so crazy. I hung up the phone with her, and then I couldn't, like, no emotion. I thought it was going to be one of those moments that I was going to be, like, hysterically crying or, but I was just so much in shock that it didn't hit me. I tried calling Alex. Didn't answer, of course. I tried calling my parents. Didn't answer, of course.
Of course.
I'm like, no, pick up your freaking phone.
Yeah, right.
And then I called my my dance teachers, and they picked up. And so I got to tell them, and then and they were ecstatic, and then I finally got a hold of my parents and Alex, and the rest of my family. I told my siblings, and yeah, it was so
That's
exciting. That was the end of April, and then I told my nanny family I could work for 2 more weeks. and then I got to go on a 3-week. I went home. I visited family for 3 weeks before rehearsal started. So it worked out perfect.
So
timing.
rehearsal started kind of shortly after.
The rehearsal started end of May.
End of May.
Yeah, found out like mid-April. So
good.
Yeah.
And how has the process been? Has it just been
so
as fun
many
as all the callbacks?
Yes, and harder.
Sure, right.
But yes, like I really love it. It's such a good group of people, and the rehearsals were a really fun process. It was a challenging process because there were a lot of kind of cooks in the kitchen.
Sure.
Andy was trying to bring new life into Cats, and then Trevor and Andrew were kind of holding the reins of keeping it close to the
authentic,
original, and so yeah, it was kind of a tricky balance sometimes. But I think we ended at a good balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we had 4 weeks in the studio at New 42, and then we did 2 weeks of tech, and that's a really challenging time just because it's 12-hour days and dancing and figuring out how to do cat makeup. That's a new thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So that tech rehearsal, the first time we saw everybody in cat face was hysterical.
Crazy.
Just people looked a mess. Now we're like pros. But But yeah, and then we did 2 weeks of tech and then 2 weeks of previews. So really short preview process. Most shows,
interesting.
Most shows have like 4 weeks of previews. Yeah. But we just had 2 weeks, and in a way, thank God, because previews are tough.
Previews are tough.
Because
yeah,
you're rehearsing from 1 to 5, 1 to 6, and then the show at 8.
Yeah.
So there would be days. Andy notoriously is known for making changes in previews.
Really?
So we would make big changes. I'm not talking like an arm. I'm talking we changed 3 minutes of the ball in a day of previews.
Oh, wow.
Like brand new scrap. And performed it that night. And then the next day, we weren't like going over the new stuff. We were making more changes.
Even more changes. Yeah.
So we'd get these sheets. Our dance team would type up these sheets of all the changes that happened that day, so you could look over it before the show. And they'd be like front and back, 5 pages. You're like,
that is
okay.
Nuts.
Just,
wow.
How do you hold it all in your brain? But somehow we do, and somehow it goes okay. It happens. So we had 2 weeks previews, and then we opened.
Now you're open. How long has the show been open?
So the show opened July 31st. So now
July 31st.
We're
oh, wow.
in April. We're like cruising.
Nice. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of cats.
A lot of cats.
Lots.
That's amazing. So wow, that's an incredible journey, an amazing art. Yeah. What advice would you give to people that are starting out, just like wanting to take dance classes because their older sisters did it? From that point, what have you learned that you would want to pass on?
For me, it was always the training that, like, I know a lot of people sometimes think, oh, I've got to build up my resume, I've got to, do shows in high school, I've got to do all these things. But I think that if you really can train and if you love it, if this is what you want to do, if you really focus on the training, then the resume will build itself. You don't need to. I'd say if you're really good at your skills, that's better than having a resume and mediocre at your skills, you know? So especially in this time when everyone is amazing and everyone can sing, dance, and act, and, you really have to be the best to at least work on Broadway. There's lots of other places to work, obviously, but you really kind of got to. Like I said, 1,500 girls auditioned for Cats, and that's so humbling and overwhelming. And I think that if you focus on your training, that'll just get you further. Yeah. But then the other thing is, like, you gotta keep the joy in it, because it's. And I think that was a challenge for me at school. Mm-hmm. It was hard for me to remember why I was doing it. Sometimes at Juilliard, it was a really intense place, and part of me kind of lost touch with what am I doing this for, and the thing that got me out of that was finding, okay, what do I enjoy, and then I auditioned for Bandstand and was like, oh, that was super fun. Like, I loved that.
There it is, yeah.
And then I did Bandstand. And then I was like, I gotta be in Cats because I love it. Yeah. And I would just have the most fun in my life. And I pursued that so intensely because I enjoyed it, not because I, for any other reason. Like, it was just, I had to be in that show because I loved it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that came out.
Exactly, and it made my audition better, I'm sure, and it made me less nervous because I was like, I'm having the time of my life, so I don't even care what you think of me right now because I'm just having a ball. Amazing. And that shows,
You gotta do what you love and love what you do.
Exactly, and you might as well, because there's no real job security in any field now.
Sure, exactly.
Like, even if you're working,
might as well do something that you're
Wall
enjoying.
Street, you know, like, you don't know, so you might as well do something that you love.
That's great. Emily, thank you so much for stopping by. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Artist Spotlight. Emily, thank you for coming on. I'm sorry the video kind of cut out. I hope you guys enjoy the audio, and we'll put a picture of Emily as a cat or something like that. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Emily.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. With actually her face.
With cats.
Yeah.